all your life before you got into filmmaking, you were an audience. So genetically also, you are first an audience. What I know is that what is my drama, where does my drama lie, and what sort of, but what should be perceived कि ये फिल्म कितने में बनी होगी has to be at least 3x from whatever money you've put in. When we were doing Bey Yaar with Pratik, that was his first film. Bey Yaar was Pratik Gandhi's first
Oh,
film
it's
ever.
first.
And this really literally happened between me, Divyang, and when we were doing this again and again. Divyang was also stressed by that time because an actor, वो writer हो, वो cinematographer हो, actor हो, या editor हो, या marketer हो, या distributor हो, कोई भी. Because by that time we have fought so many times. But that is the toughest job. Because creative human beings are the ones who cannot, stick along.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Let us begin with uh, knowing about your inspirations and what inspired you to become a filmmaker, specifically in the Gujarati film industry.
This question is in two parts actually. What
Okay.
inspired me to get into films is one, and what inspired me to make Gujarati films is another answer to this. Uh, so, as far as I remember, this was 2002 when um Amitabh Bachchan was celebrating his 60th birthday, if I'm not wrong. He's born in 1942, 52, 62, 72, 82, 92, 2002. Yeah, 60th birthday, 2002. This was the 11th of October, which is his birthday. And he had a special program on one of the news channels. It was a long interview. And he just, in one of the questions, he answered back saying that, oh, I would love to work with youngsters. I'd like to be part of a young team and would like to be directed by a young director. Now, this is a very simple answer to a question, but I don't know, that struck me. I still remember that day because I'm a Bachchan fanatic. In fact, my dad is bigger Bachchan fanatic than me. And the reason why my name is Abhishek is because he's a Bachchan fanatic.
Oh,
So, so when he said this, it struck me, and I realized that I want to be into storytelling business. That was one inspiration. And after that, obviously, there were years that passed before I joined the film school. But I think this is where je kehvai na ke beej ropayu hase.
acha. So that interview.
That, yeah. And then in the film school at Whistling Woods, I used to be a very constant visitor to the library. Constant visitor, as in, I think 6 or 7 hours of the day I used to spend in the library, watching films and reading books. So one day, I don't know, randomly, with this 50,000 films in the library, I was just going through the categories, and there were language categories, and there were all sorts of films from Bengali to Punjabi to Tamil to Telugu, but very few films, like very few. The shelf of Gujarati films was the thinnest, and it posed a question in my mind that why aren't there many Gujarati films? Because by that time, having learned about filmmaking, whatever I had learned, I'd realized that in every aspect of filmmaking, Gujaratis have been part of it.
Okay.
Be it the producer, the distributor, or the marketeer, or a writer, or a cinematographer, everyone. But why is it that there are no Gujarati films in a library like this? Maybe that was the second beach that Rupayu of making a Gujarati film. But these are faintly I can remember. These are the inspirations. But these are such moments that you don't really at that moment you don't feel that this is going
Correct,
to be
correct.
the inspiration. But then when you trace your journey back and then you realize that what really pushed you into this, maybe these were the triggering incidents.
Makes sense. Uh, as you mentioned about your family, how important was your family in this? When you were selecting this sort of unconventional professional, which it is very conventional in a place like Mumbai, but in a place like Gujarat, where you mentioned where the industry was not so booming when you joined in. Of course, you changed the thing, but how was your family supportive to you? And were you married? If not, how was your wife also supportive to you?
Okay, I think the family support started right at the beginning when I was a kid. When I was around 9 or 10 year old, I was a very notorious child. I'm the youngest one in the family of the two children that my father has. I'm the youngest one. So I was always very mischievous, very notorious. I used to mimic people. तो वो होता है ना वो हर 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 80s और 90s के बच्चे की ज़िंदगी का सबसे बड़ा ट्रॉमा यही होता है कि जब आप कोई पड़ोसी आया होता, कोई रिलेटिव आया होता, तो माँ बाप बोलते बेटा उसकी एक्टिंग करके दिखा, इसकी एक्टिंग करके दिखा। तो मैं वो करता था।
अच्छा।
So they kind of encouraged me. They encouraged me to join a theatre group, and I was doing bal nataks. So Mia Fuski, અને તભાપટ, છકો મકો, અડુક્યો દડુક્યો,
ઓકે.
છોટે મિયા ચૂચું મૂચું, લિટલ ડાયનોસોર ડીનો, આ બધા જ બાળ નાટકો અમારા નાનપણના છે અને કદાચ તમારા નાનપણના પણ હોય. They used to play at these theatres across Gujarat. So they kind of pushed me into it कि तू कर, कोई बात नहीं है. और मुझे बहुत मज़ा आता था बिकॉज एज अ चाइल्ड यू आर ऑन द स्टेज. एज सुन एज देर इज द एंड ऑफ द प्ले, द चिल्ड्रन ऑफ योर एज और एल्डर टू यू यूज टू पीप फ्रॉम द curtain and ask for an autograph. That was fascinating because you sort of thought that you were a star or you were very popular and people wanted to have your autograph and all. That kind of encouraged me. And after that also, whatever steps I took was unconventional in a way that when I joined my graduation school, my college, I was participating in a lot of activities. So attendance was never a problem because you would get compensated on that. But my dad never questioned that. Why aren't you attending your college so much, and why are you participating in so many things? I think these are some subtle, encouragements that do not come in the face to you, but they are encouragements. But when I went to the film school, just before that, my dad really questioned that, are you sure you want to go to a film school? Because you've done your BBA, you have a path ahead, do an MBA, join your dad's business. And that's the route, right? For a guy who was born in a Marwadi family, staying in Gujarat, Ahmedabad, this is the route, right? And this is the most secure and safest route. But I said, no, I'm very sure of going to a film school. And he said, we do not have any background in it. We do not, दूर दूर तक कोई रिश्तेदार नहीं है, कोई कल्चरल इन्फ्लक्स परिवार में ऐसा रहा नहीं कि सुबह उठ करके रविंद्र संगीत चल रहा है, कि फिर किताबें पढ़ी जा रही है आराम से लीजरली. तो वो बंगाल नहीं है हमारा घर. हमारा घर एक
so artistic, so to
नो
say.
आर्टिस्टिक, इट्स अ हसल बसल बिजनेस फैमिली
Correct.
वाला मामला. I said, no, still I want to go there. I remember my dad had come all the way to Whistling Woods before the enrollment, and he met Subhash Ghai there.
अच्छा.
And Subhashji kindly enough told my dad that, don't worry about this kid. You are his father, I am his godfather. So being Subhash Ghai, giving typical dialogues, and મારા પપ્પાને ગળગળિયા થઈ ગયા કે અરે હા હવે મને ચિંતા નથી. And post that, when I decided to make a Gujarati film, again, society-wise there were a lot of pressure because बेटा पढ़ाई करके आ गया लेकिन पता नहीं क्या पढ़ाई की है, उम्र हो चुकी है शादी वादी करवाने की. मैं 23-24 का था. इन मारवाड़ीज दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम 21-22 23-24 was the ideal age to get married and all that. But ये क्या कर रहा है यहाँ पर? So it was almost like a feeling of suicidal thing that he is going to do, making a Gujarati film. But my dad said that if you are convinced, then go ahead and do it. But whatever you do, make sure that you don't just get into filmmaking. You make, a ecosystem. You attach a cause to it, and you get into the business of filmmaking. So मैंने बोला यार ये मारवाड़ी पिता उस तरीके से बोल रहा है जैसे हर पिता को बोलना चाहिए. But now when I look back, I realize that what he really meant was that if you are just a filmmaker, then you will be dependent on a lot of development from the ecosystem itself. But if you're into the business of filmmaking, you really can drive things.
That really makes a lot of sense because I know that actually was my follow-up question. Having come out from a film school, how did you manage to come out of that bubble, that film schools tend to create? They might not be so popular about teaching the business of films. So, film schools tend to create an artistic personality in a person where they might overlook the practicalities of real life. Like as soon as one comes out of a film school, they're all about films and they're talking about films to all their friends, family, everything. But when it comes to making films, it is not just an artistic process as far as I understand. You require a lot of street smartness for it. And that comes with only practical experience in life, and that sometimes may come as a big blow to people who have not been out there in the real world.
I think two things really worked because Whistling Woods was placed right in middle of Bombay Film City.
Okay.
So when you see a lot of hustle bustle of filmmaking, the commercial filmmaking around you, that environment seeps into you. Our
Okay.
film school was not aloof from the society. Secondly, we were always constantly told that it is a commercial art form, which is also attached with a lot of craftsmanship.
Okay.
So, kind of encompasses everything. And at the end of I mean, when we got graduated, we were passing out of the film school. In our farewell speech, Subhash ji told that, now that you have learned everything, step out and time to unlearn everything.
Okay.
And that made a lot of sense. So, yeah.
That is true. You have to sort of unlearn a lot of things when you go on set for the first time in real life. There are numerous schools of thoughts when it comes to filmmaking, in terms of how a director, a producer, how an actor thinks of films. Uh, which school of thought do you believe in, and why would that be?
I think the only school of thought that I believe in this entire journey so far is is telling a story with utmost drama in it. Because our culture, our country is immensely dramatic. Immensely dramatic. Like every moment there is drama. While I was coming here,
Yeah.
I was supposed to reach at 4, meet you at a circle, and from there to drive down here. I could have actually timed it really well. But the drama started at the moment when you gave me a call and I was under the pressure that I have to reach. You were under a dramatic scenario because what if he reaches late? What if he reaches early?
Wouldn't have been a lot of problem, but
Yeah, but I'm just
yeah,
giving you an
for
example that
early, yes,
drama
it
is
would
all
have been
around
because
us, all around
yeah,
us,
it's all
every day,
around
every
us. True,
second.
true.
So I'm still discovering, as I consider myself still a student of cinema. I'm still discovering, but at the core of it all, I think drama, conflict, and telling a story with utmost dramatic perspective, and then driving and delving into the conflicts of people's lives is the most fascinating part, and that is the school of thought that I follow. I don't
Okay,
know if there is any other school of thought.
okay. Do you think there is a story without a conflict? Can there be a story without conflicts?
For me, it's not a story without a
It's not.
conflict.
There's
For
no.
me personally.
Correct. Correct. No, I believe same in the
Yeah.
same way. Uh, do you feel films need to have a social message?
I don't know. I mean, this is social message is a jargon for me.
Mm.
It's more of a slang or used very abusively. But there has to be a message. I don't know if there is social message to it or not, but a message is important because otherwise, how are you putting across your point of view or your perspective about anything that you saw? So, for example, I am on a traffic signal. There is one beggar who comes, knocks my windshield, and asks me for some money. So there are two point of views.
Mm.
One is, oh man, this guy is in need. I feel empathized or sympathized towards him. I need to give him something. The second point of view is that अरे ऐसे लोग हर चौराहे पर हैं और ये एक बहुत बड़ा स्कैंडल है, बहुत बड़ा स्कैम है. इन लोगों को कभी पैसे नहीं देने चाहिए क्योंकि ये लोग फिर कुछ नहीं करते, सिर्फ इसका बेहुदी जगह पे खर्चा करते हैं.
હા, પછી એમનું કેલ્ક્યુલેશન કે રોજના આટલા કમાતો હશે તો આટલા કમાતો તો કામ કરવાની શું જરૂર?
તો
Sort of,
આ
I've
એક
done
મેસેજ
that.
છે ને, તો તમારું પોઈન્ટ ઓફ વ્યૂ છે આ. તો પોઈન્ટ ઓફ વ્યૂ વગર તો કોઈ ફિલ્મ મેકિંગ ના હોઈ શકે. ધ ફિલ્મ મેકર between a story and a film, there is always a filmmaker's point of view. And I think that point of view is the message.
Okay.
Now you call it social message, you call it anti-social message, whatever that is. That is for the world to, really judge. But there has to be a message.
Okay. Uh, do you make films for yourself or do you make them for the audiences?
There is always this question. And this is not a new question to
Okay.
me, and I'm sure this question has been asked to a lot of filmmakers. But I feel that why is there a difference between a filmmaker and the audience? A filmmaker is predominantly his own audience. So if I say that I make films for myself, it means that I'm making film for an audience. That audience could be one, that is my own self, and that could be in hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, lakhs, millions, whatever. But I think everyone is making film at the end of the day for an audience. कहानी तो किसी के लिए कही जाती है ना,
Okay.
कहानी सिर्फ मन में नहीं कही जाती। तो फिर आदमी बाथरूम में भी मतलब जैसे गाना गाता है वैसे कहानी कह सकता है, बट आप किसी के लिए कहानी कहते हैं, दैट इज़ इम्पॉर्टेंट एलिमेंट। एंड आई थिंक एवरी फिल्म मेकर इज हिज ओन ऑडियंस फर्स्ट। All your life before you got into filmmaking, you were an audience. So genetically also, you are first an audience, then a trained storyteller or an untrained or whatever, self-learned storyteller. That part of life comes later. What is the earlier, bigger chunk of your life, the thicker chunk of your life is being an audience yourself.
Makes sense. Uh, do you chase your instincts, your feelings, your ideas, and transform them into films, or do you first sort of think of? I'm sure there must have been times when you have had to make a film also. So do you first sort of think of making a film and then go out seeking ideas and then observing people or whatever, or do you chase those instincts and feelings and ideas that come to you without the thought of having to make a film, and then you translate them into films? What I mean, you could be doing both. Which one do you prefer, and which one do you not?
No, actually, a very interesting question because I've been through both the aspects.
Correct. I mean, as a filmmaker,
Instinctively, yeah, instinctively, I felt something so desperate, and inside me, it's bubbling with a lot of energy. It's like a volcano, and I want to express it, and it has come instinctively to me, and I want to express it, and I make a film out of it. The second part of it, it has happened to me when I was for the longest time not doing anything. So between 2015 and 2020, that is 5 years of my life, I had not made any film. I had only produced one, but not made any film. So there was a sense of self doubt also that I had slipped into. And I kind of questioned whether I am a filmmaker or not, whether I can really make films or not, whether I really want to make films ever in my life further ahead or not. एंड आई वॉज आउट ऑन द सर्च के अच्छा चलो अब मुझे फिल्में बनानी है, तो मैं अभी कहानी ढूंढता हूँ। एंड आई ट्राइड हार्ड, आई मीन ट्राइड रियली हार्ड टू डू दैट, दैट नेवर हैपेंड। एंड देन व्हेन आई वाज डूइंग नथिंग, समथिंग हैपेंड एंड आई वांट टू मेक अ फिल्म। सो यू कांट चेज अ स्टोरी. I strongly believe the story comes, lands on your table, starts talking to you. Now, how you embrace that, how you nurture that story, and kind of slyly adopt that, and then put it in a shelf, lock it, not let it go anywhere, is when the process really starts.
it does make sense. So, do you still do films for anybody else? Do you still like write or direct for? I mean, knowing that it is not an instinctive idea, it's not your own instinctive idea. Would you still?
So, even if there is a ready script, when you're reading it or when you're taking a narration, something has to impact you, something has to touch you. You have to have some point of view, you have to have some perspective. So, there is a constant conversation with your own self, and there is this constant release of instincts. If that is not happening with any story, then you will not make it because you have to marry that story and then live with it for the longest time. And it's not only until you make it, but also after having made it. So imagine I would have just made Kevi for the sake of having made it. Years down the line, I wouldn't be proud of the fact that I made a film called Kevi because you will die with that film,
Correct.
you know. So until you die, you are going to live with that film. You have to be really be able to marry that film. So if that is not happening, whether you should not make it.
What was that one feeling for Kevi, Jaish? What was happening around you, and what did you take out of your environment that inspired you to make this film? Because that was a changer for the industry, and at least in the Gujarati film industry, it changed the way the industry functioned. And I think you've also been awarded for it, like a trendsetter kind of an award. I think, yeah.
So a lot of things happened during Kevirte Jaish. Before we mounted the film, while we were doing the film, after the post production of the film, after the release of the film, there was a constant, it's like I was standing still there and the environment kept on changing. So I don't know what to really talk about it, but it really changed my life. And from that point of view, that I could give a thrust to myself and make more Gujarati films and contribute more is what really changed for me.
No, I get it. My question is, a idea Kevi that I mean of
Okay.
people going abroad to study and
Hmm.
doing everything. And I think it was way ahead of its time because the way that moving out has escalated. I mean, people my age, half my classmates are outside.
I'm sure
More than
more than
half.
half.
More than half. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So and in your times, I don't think it was so bad or good or whatever you call
No,
it.
it was equally that.
Oh,
It
it was
was
equally
equally
this
like
way.
that. Yeah, yeah. Because I remember when I completed my 10th standard and 11th and 12th standard, I was contemplating whether I should go abroad and study or not. So I started going to these immigration specialists and consultants and all of those. When I visited them, I came to know there are so many like me who want to go to USA per se. That time, USA and UK were the two hotspots, not like unlike today where Australia is a hotspot or Canada is a hotspot.
Correct.
Back then, USA and UK were the hotspots, and this I'm talking about 2001,
Mm.
2002, and everyone wanted to go, you know. And I realized that there is this madness because these consultants were offering you admissions without IELTS. They were offering you admissions, to some backyard university. Then I was questioning what is the purpose of really going. When I dived deeper, I realized that studies were not really a purpose. It was maybe immigrating there or whatever. So those kind of people that I came across, this was 10th standard, 11th standard, whatever. But years after that, when I thought that I want to make a Gujarati film, I was reading through a couple of news articles, came across someone who desperately wanted to go to USA, got caught in the immigration scam. And migration has always fascinated me as a subject, as a topic. I thought, why not make a film on this? Again, an instinctive reply to that article that I read. And then I got into writing Kevi Jaish.
Okay.
And oh yeah, I remember I had heard this song, which was actually Kevi Jaish. The song was Kevi Jaish. Some rappers out there in America made this song,
Okay.
and that was in Gujarati, way ahead of its time.
Mm.
And I heard that song, and I said, "Wow!" I mean, I could connect because I came across that song while I was writing Kevi Jaish. That's where also the title comes from.
Okay. Did you use that song? Was it
No, we didn't use that
sure,
song.
okay.
I
Because
don't
I think
remember
there
who
is a
did it.
rap. There is
There
some
is
kind
a
of a
rap.
song.
Kevirte Jaish Baila, Kevirte Jaish.
Yeah. Acha.
એવું કંઈક હતું. I don't remember now.
Okay. Uh, as you mentioned, uh, filmmaking is an expensive art form.
Hmm.
One needs to be creative in terms of their thinking, as I mentioned earlier, they need to be street smart also. How do you navigate the balance between commercial success and artistic integrity?
इसका सिंपल आंसर वो है कि आप अपना काम शिद्दत से करो. आपको जो कहना है वो ईमानदारी से कहो. आपको जो बनाना है उसमें पूरा दिल लगा के बनाओ. और उसके बाद में जो होना है वो आउटकम है. वो आउटकम या तो पैसों से तोलो, या आपकी शोहरत से तोलो, या आपके सामने कैसी अपॉर्चुनिटीज आती है उससे तोलो. दैट इज़ अपॉन दैट पर्सन. बट आई थिंक one cannot start chasing money and then eventually get into a creative field. The creativity comes first and then money follows.
Okay.
I think that is also applicable to a lot of other businesses. But for filmmaking, I can really vouch for is that no one wakes up in the morning saying that, oh, I want to make $100 million and let's go out and make a film. No. One wakes up saying that I want to make a film. He goes out, makes a film, and then eventually the film makes $100 million.
But people do sort of tend to analyze what has worked in previous times and then, or a previous film, and then incorporate such aspects in their new film. Not necessarily they will work, but they do tend to sort of rely on what has worked and then use it in the next film. And sometimes it does go well, sometimes it doesn't.
या बट वो तो दुनिया का नियम है ना. पहले क्रिकेट खेली गई थी, उसके बाद में क्रिकेट की रूल बुक बनाई गई थी. तो पहले फिल्में बनाई गई, उसके बाद फिल्म स्कूल आए.
Sure.
तो
Okay.
वो सारे जो फॉर्मूलाज है, दे आर जस्ट प्रोबेबली कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल थिंग्स दैट मे बी इफ यू ट्राई डूइंग दिस it might work. It doesn't come with assurance. So, what comes first is the willingness to express. And then comes what all you could probably try doing which can reach the maximum audience, which is fair,
Which is
which
fair.
I feel is
I'm not
absolutely fair.
against. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, do you envision a film in its entirety before you take it to the production stage, or do you sort of also let things come on sets?
No, I have this incapability of being able to envision everything to the T before I go into the production. I think I leave a lot to the instincts that come to me on the set also. I feel it's more like a prayer every day. When I go onto the set, I at least manage or hustle to manage uh, to space myself out for at least an hour on the set before the hustle bustle starts, before the crew starts coming and the cast starts coming in and everyone and the chaos starts. Just before the chaos, I just be on the set and try to have a conversation with my own self or the creator in me, and then that creator can probably guide me. So I can leave that room for improvisation for myself.
How do you go about working on the budget of a film? Like, as a producer
Hmm.
yourself,
Hmm.
how do you what goes into the finance of a film, and how do you know if this film is worth the money? Because as a producer, I'm sure no producer wants to lose money.
Hmm. Hmm. This is going to be a long answer,
No problem.
but I would say that whenever there is a script that comes to us, as a producer, saying, I mean, in my case, I've been a director and producer both, but right now I'll only talk as a producer. So what we tend to do is that, say, there is no fixed formula to budgeting a film. There are no Excel sheets that can define अगर इतना डाला तो इतना रुपया आ जाएगा, ये जो भी है. But as a filmmaker or as a producer, what I tend to patch out from the script is that what are the core things which cannot be compromised. For example, when we were making uh, uh, Kevi, Jaish, as a writer, I wrote the climax at the airport. As a director, I said, fantastic. अपनी पहली फिल्म का क्लाइमैक्स एयरपोर्ट पे हो रहा है. सुपर थिंग, बीइंग अ हिंदी फिल्म लवर. एज अ प्रोड्यूसर आई वाज स्क्रैचिंग माई हेड सेइंग कि यार ये साला क्या लिख दिया, कौन करेगा अभी क्लाइमैक्स में. तो एज अ प्रोड्यूसर यू हैव टू गेज what is the most important or what are the core things that you cannot compromise on. Now when I'm talking about Kevi Jaish, I'm talking about migration, I'm talking about a Patel guy wanted to fly to USA. अगर आप वो क्लाइमेक्स को एयरपोर्ट से हटा करके एसटी बस स्टॉप में डालोगे तो कभी कोई कन्विंस नहीं होगा. तो वो बॉक्स टिक हो गया कि ये तो
It
करना
had
तो
to be
एयरपोर्ट
an
पे ही है.
airport, correct?
तो इस तरह से वी काइंड ऑफ आइडेंटिफाई कि दीज थिंग्स आर माई टॉप लाइन, आई कैन नॉट कॉम्प्रोमाइज ऑन दैट. देन फ्यू थिंग्स दैट आई कैन मनूवर ओवर कि भाई एक लाल कलर की गाड़ी चाहिए डायरेक्टर को, पीला कलर ही हम अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं. फाइन इनफ इफ दैट इज नॉट इम्पैक्टिंग योर ड्रामा. पता चला द लाल कलर गाड़ी इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट प्रॉप ऑफ द फिल्म, देन इट हैज़ टू बी द लाल कलर गाड़ी.
Makes
But
sense.
if there can be a compromise on that, fair enough. So that is how we kind of budget things. Secondly, we tend to make sure that the dignity of the talent and the dignity of the technology used to tell the story has to be maintained. कि भाई एक cinematographer है, he's bringing something on the board, right? And there is a minimum wage, you know, there is no minimum wage as such defined like how in the foreign countries, but a minimum wage isn't, there is a minimum lifestyle that someone lives. उतना मान सभर उसको फी मिलनी चाहिए. वो बेस लाइन होना चाहिए आपका. आपका नेगोशिएशन ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि यार तू 2 रुपया ले ले. मुझे पता है वो 1 महीने के लिए अगर यहाँ रह रहा है तो उसकी ज़िंदगी का कुछ पोर्शन है जो वो खर्चने वाला है. उतना अपना बेस प्लेट होना चाहिए. उसके ऊपर वो जो भी बोलता है उधर से हम उसको नीचे तक लेके आ सकते हैं. तो डिग्निटी ऑफ दैट पर्सन हैज़ टू बी मेंटेन्ड एज अ टैलेंट, एज अ स्किल सेट दैट ही ब्रिंग्स ऑन द टेबल, एंड द टेक्निक्स or the technology that is going to be used. Like we were talking, wrong side Raju had an accident scene. Had I thought that accident scene important नहीं है तो रॉन्ग साइड राजू कभी बनती ही नहीं, क्योंकि वो एक्सीडेंट इतना इंपॉर्टेंट है. अब उस एक्सीडेंट के पीछे आपको पैसा तो खर्च नहीं पड़ेगा. अब आप उस समय ऐसा नहीं सोच सकते कि यार ये भी 20 रुपए की चीज़ मिल रही है, बहुत महंगी हो रही है, मैं इसको 2 रुपए में ला दूँ क्या. तो वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ होगा. अगर वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ होगा तो विजुअली कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ होगा. तो उस टेक्नोलॉजी की अपनी एक इंटेग्रिटी है, अपना एक रिस्पेक्ट है, अपनी एक डिग्निटी है, उतना तो आपको खर्चना पड़ेगा. एंड द थर्ड थिंग विच वी tend to achieve or chase is that whatever money you put in, that is the actual money that you put in. But what should be perceived कि ये फिल्म कितने में बनी होगी हैज़ टू बी एटलीस्ट 3x फ्रॉम वॉट एवर मनी यू पुट इन. अगर मैं आज एक फिल्म में 1 करोड़ रुपए डालता हूँ, तो उसका परसेप्शन वैल्यू जो है ऑडियंस को लगना चाहिए यार कम से कम तो 3 करोड़ में बनी होगी फिल्म. अगर वो मैंने किया तो एज अ प्रोड्यूसर आई अचीव माई गेम. सो दीज आर द few elements that we keep in mind.
That makes a lot of sense. It's very insightful what you just said. Uh, so, how do you control when you're going in on sets as a director? How do you control the process of filmmaking? Do you sort of trickle down the responsibilities to, let's say, your sound guy, a cinematographer, your art director? Do you give them the maximum freedom that they want to enjoy, or do you also like to go and sometimes thoda thoda bata diya idhar udhar ki how do
Personally, I
you
am not a very techno savvy person.
okay
So if you ask me that what is the aperture and what is this and what is that, I don't get it. And I don't want to delve with it. What I know is that what is my drama? Where does my drama lie? And what sort of scene I want to construct here. And then I take help of these technicians. I do not really get into the techniques of making a film. What I do maximum is that as a director, I communicate the intent or the dramatic intent of my scene to my crew members and then leave them to bounce it back to me कि अगर ये ड्रामेटिक इंटेंट है तो शायद हम अपर्चर को थोड़ा ऐसा रख सकते हैं और हम फ्रेम रेट को ऐसा कर सकते हैं. एंड देन आई वुड इमेजिन हाउ डज दिस लुक, यू जस्ट टोल्ड मी समथिंग, तो यू शो मी अ रेफरेंस. हाँ हाँ ये शायद बैठता है, ये कर सकते हैं. या फिर यार ये बहुत जारिंग हो जाएगा, मेरा ड्रामा जो है वो इस मोमेंट पे जब आता है होलिस्टिकली जब मैं देखता हूँ तो वो नहीं बैठता है, तो कुछ और ऑप्शन है क्या. सो दैट काइंड ऑफ डिस्कशन, that is where the collaboration comes in. If I start defining everything, then what is the purpose of having a technician on board and what is he contributing if I am defining everything? So that goes with every department. And then when you give them that leeway, they also contribute as filmmakers. So because they are cinematographers doesn't mean that they are not filmmakers. They are also filmmakers.
yeah
Everyone is a filmmaker. So how will they contribute unless until they have not got what is the dramatic intent from you? So as a director, as personally as me, I do not understand technique a lot. I just understand that this is my dramatic intent, which I know they probably won't get it. So I have to communicate it to them. And then they can bring their skill set on board.
correct makes sense. Do you also with your cinematographers do you discuss about the colors, or do you let them first pitch in the ideas and then the colors of the film that you're going to make?
If there is something that is stuck to my mind right from the inception of the story, or if there is something that has inspired me, I kind of tell them that this could be the zone, because every story has a mood. Like I'm telling a story about a female in captivation. So automatically the mood in my mind sets in that it's a very raw, rustic, dull, in colors. And now he will come back saying that, okay, you know what, we can keep everything very gray and have high contrast, all of that. And I don't understand all of this. So I asked them, मुझे pictorial reference दिखाओ.
Okay.
और कुछ मेरे fascinations होते हैं. Like I'm highly inspired by Fatih Akin. I'm highly inspired by Wong Kar-wai और Zhang Yimou और से किज़लोव्स्की. तो मैं बोलूँगा यार किज़लोव्स्की ने वैसा कोई शॉट लिया था ना, वैसा कुछ करें क्या? ये तारकोव्स्की की स्टॉकर में से ऐसा कुछ कर सकते हैं क्या? So it's not imitating them, but these are images that have lived with me for the longest time. And I want to kind of pay respect back to them because they have inspired me and they have lived in my system for the longest time.
Uh-huh.
So it's time for me to pay back.
Correct. It's an inspiration. It's
Yeah.
not imitation. When it comes to the treatment of your films, and how do you go about, for let's say a new filmmaker, how does he or she decide on what treatment goes into what kind of a film? So for a film like Kevi, Jaish, you also had a funny kind of a thing, tone going to it. So that's how you treated it. And I think most Gujarati films today are treated. They are comedy films, so
They're
the
funnily very
treatment
funny.
is the treatment is heavy on dialogues. So I mean the visual part. I mean film as films is an audio visual medium, and even the audio part of it, they're just we are heavy on dialogues, and it is working. And I'm not criticizing anybody. It's working. It's working fine. People are going to the theaters. Who am I to say anything, or who's anybody to say anything? It's all working fine. But I'm saying there are other ways in which filmmakers can use different treatments to come out to bring out different films. Could you shed some light on what kind of treatments they could use for some films that they have
See, once you
thought of?
put your finger or your intuition and your conviction onto a story, and you start living with that story, leave everything on the story. The story will start telling you how I want to be treated. Like, imagine the story to be a living being across the table,
Okay.
and you're married to him or her, and you are in a closed room, and you are constantly interacting with the story. She will tell you, or he will tell you, you know what? This is how I imagine myself to be told. This is very, I might sound very absurd,
No,
like a
no, it's
psycho,
totally fine.
but
It's a subjective matter.
huh, but I always treat stories that they come alive to me in form of a human being, and they interact with me. And out of those interaction, I kind of find, okay, that storyteller would want to, that story would want to be told in this way, you know. So I think to chase a treatment is a wrong practice. At least it has not worked for me.
Okay.
I equally love the work of Bijoy Nambiar. Okay, so he's heavily on treatment, but always I find that his films do not really, the storytelling becomes so sidelined that you cannot, really understand the story, but you always chase the treatment. On the other hand, you have Bijoy Nambiar uh, is sorry, I mean, he's coming from the lineage of Mani Ratnam. On the other hand, Mani Ratnam is someone who will use technique to tell the story so well that the story will make all the sense and you'll forget the technique. Use your technique in a way that while watching the film or while you are telling the story, people do not remember the technique, people remember the story. And Mani Ratnam is a master in it, right? So I never chase a treatment. I let the story tell me how I want to be treated, what is the genre that you want me to be, told in, all of those. This is a very spiritual thing, but I feel that, the more you live with the story, the more interaction you will have with the story, all your questions are answered there itself. And you become more convinced about the story. And then you become the medium between the story and the audience to tell what the story wants to tell. So directors are what? They are just medium to everything. Like, I'm not a technician. So if I want to create an image, I'm a medium between the story and the cinematographer to tell that through an image. Same is with sound, same with everything. So directors are just mediums.
You're saying sort of jack of all, but could be
And that is
master
a
of all.
popular saying. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
understand that.
Makes sense what you just said. Do you include camera movements and all of that in your screenplays? And even when you do it impromptu, do you feel the necessity for a camera movement and like a motivation for a camera movement, or is it not in your mind when you're shooting a film?
No, it is certain in my mind while I'm reading the screenplay, because now as a practicing filmmaker, it becomes very obvious for you to think that way, that यहाँ एक क्लोजअप होगा, फिर पुल बैक करेंगे, और फिर ये कैरेक्टर एंटर होगा, फिर हम रिवील करेंगे और ये कैरेक्टर अकेला नहीं बैठा था, दो कैरेक्टर यहाँ पर थे. अब ये चीज़ है कि हाउ आर यू गोइंग टू टेल द स्टोरी. सो वाइल यू रीडिंग द स्क्रिप्ट अगेन एंड अगेन अगेन एंड अगेन अगेन एंड अगेन, देयर आर दीज इमेजेस दैट कीप फॉर्मिंग इन योर माइंड, एंड I keep on making notes of them कि क्या आया मेरे दिमाग में, because what is my mind trying to say, what is my instinct trying to say, and what is the script that how is my instinct responding to the written text. I kind of make notes of it. When I'm discussing it with my technicians, cinematographers or art director, whatever, so I'm saying that, while I was reading this, I just imagined a red wall. I don't know why, but there was this red wall. And now I've just given them pieces of puzzles. The technicians comes back to me having solved that puzzle and said, I know why you were saying this red. We can infuse this red through this, and this character can be backing a color like red. So these are such conversations of the collaboration that happens.
Correct. How many takes do you do on an average, if you had to
I
say?
don't know.
You wouldn't remember.
I
No, no problem.
sometimes I get satisfied with the first take itself. Sometimes it takes me lot of takes until and unless I am not happy. To give you an example, when we were shooting something for Bey Yaar, there was this scene between Divyang's character and Pratik's character with a foreigner in a closed canteen, जो दिव्यांग के कैरेक्टर के पिताजी का कैंटीन था. So in that canteen, these two boys who only know Gujarati and a little bit tutti putti Hindi and little bit of English were supposed to convince a foreigner who doesn't understand any other language, not even English completely, convince him that please do not take away the painting of my dad's friend. How do you construct that scene? So we, did a lot of takes, and I think, and it was a single shot. So single shot take. So, and it was on Steadicam. So that Steadicam guy was operating it for almost 6-7 minutes every time we were taking it again. And we spent over 100 minutes out of it. I said यार एक सीन के पीछे 2-2 घंटे थोड़ी निकाल सकते हैं यार. अब कब मतलब ये परफेक्ट टेक मिलेगा? वो परफेक्ट टेक की डेफिनेशन क्या है? तो जब अंदर से आता है कि हाँ यार ये है वो जो मैं चाहता था, वो दैट काइंड ऑफ इंटरवेंशन दैट हैपेंस फ्रॉम द स्पिरिचुअल सेंस ऑफ योर्स टेल्स यू दैट अभिषेक बस यहाँ रुक जा, ये मिल गया अपने को, दैट आई कांट इवन डिफाइन. सम एनर्जी कम्स एंड टेल्स मी, एंड दिस रियली लिटरली हैपेंड बिटवीन मी, दिव्यांग, and when we were doing this again and again. Divyang was also stressed by that time because an actor is giving similar takes, and we were on the 20th or 21st take.
Oh my God.
And almost 21 multiplied by 6, whatever number of minutes he has already given, and the breaks in between. तो 4 घंटे से सेम सीन शूट हो रहा है और एक टेक हुआ और मैं पता नहीं, आई वॉज ऑन द चेयर एंड आई जस्ट जम्प्ड. ऐसे मिल गया और अभी तक कट भी नहीं बोला मैंने, और वो रोलिंग ही चल रहा है, एंड दिव्यांग इज स्टिल परफॉर्मिंग. आई गो एंड इन मिडल ऑफ द शॉट आई गो एंड हग दिव्यांग एंड किस हिम एंड टेल हिम दैट वी हैव गॉट इट, और कट कर दो. बट आई डोंट नो व्हाट हैपेंड. देयर वाज सम एनर्जी दैट केम एंड सेड दिस इज इट, cut it now. So that happens.
Sometimes due to lack of time, do you always make sure that you've got the shot, or do you sometimes let it, edit में देख लेंगे type of?
हाँ वो तो होता ही है because
but then does it affect the next shot? If you're not, because I'm the kind of a person, if मेरे को सब पुराना काम अच्छे से नहीं हुआ तो आगे के काम में थोड़ा दिक्कत आता है. Does it affect you also that way?
Now it doesn't affect me because filmmaking, I've realized, is an ever evolving process. If the shot that you take earlier or the scene that didn't work earlier for you, maybe you had to compromise because lack of time, lack of light, whatever reasons, and these are going to be there. This also happens with someone of the caliber like SS Rajamouli or Sanjay Leela Bhansali. तो हम तो क्या चीज़ है, ठीक है. तो बजट किसी के पास में पूरा नहीं होता है. हर एक आदमी को ऐसा लगता है यार मुझे बहुत कम बजट मिला है, तो हमें भी कम ही मिला है. तो but what you do is that you kind of evolve and improvise. अच्छा वो scene में वो हुआ था. That is why holistically to be able to know the scene is, or the film is very important. How much is it going to affect the film? If not, move on to the next and just try to bind them. Okay, if the scene number 13 and 14 you are shooting consecutively, 13 didn't work well, you can always make a mend in the 14, or you can think of something like a 13A which is going to bridge between 13 and 14, and you still will manage to tell the story seamlessly. So these are some tropes rather, or techniques which comes on the set. You do not really calculate that. One cannot calculate all of these things.
And I think it improves with experience, I think. You'll understand how.
अब मैं जब मेरे असिस्टेंट्स को बोलता हूँ अरे एडिट में देख लेंगे, तो वो लोग ज़्यादा चिंतातुर होते हैं कि अरे ये क्या एडिट में देखना, एडिट में नहीं होने वाला, ये नहीं जमेगा, ऐसा सब. कई बार क्या होता है कि बाई मिस्टेक यू जंप दी एक्सेस, और ये सब छोड़ो, वो सब एडिट पे देख ले, बस इंसर्ट ले लो 3-4. वो इंसर्ट मैं कब डाल दूंगा एडिट पे पता भी नहीं चलेगा, और वो जंप एक्सेस वगैरह सब भूला जाएगा, तो सीमलेसली सब निकल जाएगा.
अच्छा. Do you allow your actors to improvise on sets? They can change the dialogue. They can,
as long as the intent of the drama, the intent of the scene is not tampered, they can do whatever they want to do. So they can improvise, but however they have to be in the periphery, and that periphery is the dramatic intent of the scene, and one cannot look at the scene in isolation. That scene has to work in totality towards the holistic script. So if that works, it works. They can improvise. Pratik Gandhi improvises so much, and yet he sticks to the script. So is Divyang. He comes up with so many ideas before a scene. So they keep on improvising, and I love that process, because when they improvise, I get a couple of options to reject from and to accept.
What do you think are the major differences if there are any, I don't know if there are, between a good film actor and a good theater actor?
Hmm. I There is no difference as such. I've come to realize that. But earlier, when we were doing Bey Yaar with Pratik, that was his first film. Bey Yaar was Pratik Gandhi's first
Oh,
film
his
ever.
first
Yeah,
film, okay,
and he was coming from an intensive experience
in
on
theater.
stage in
Hmm.
theater. So the first day when I was shooting with him, I told him that Pratik, theater is all long shot for me. Cinema is all close up for me. So here, you wouldn't get an opportunity to even move too much because I will be tight close onto you. So the way I look at cinema is close ups, and the way I look at theater is long shots. I mean, wide shot. So you will have to perform that way. But I think that was an unnecessary advice or suggestion that I
Correct.
gave
He
him
must have
because
been.
when I saw him the first take, I said, "Hey, इसको तो सब पता है, इसको सब आता है, अभी मेरे को इतना समझाने की जरूरत ही नहीं थी."
Makes sense.
So I don't see any difference between theater actor or cinema actor as long as they understand that they are here to do and not act. Sometimes people act, which I don't like. They are supposed to be what their character is, and that is acting for me.
Okay. Uh, can you briefly describe what this three act structure is? I mean, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and do you follow it in your scripts?
Briefly describe to ho gaya na. You just said beginning,
The
middle, and
beginning, middle, and
end.
end.
That
But
is
where do you
briefly
draw the line
describing it.
between the beginning and the middle and the
I
end?
don't really clinically draw it, but what I understand is that I don't start reading the script keeping this
This in
structure
mind.
in mind.
Okay.
I first read the script. However, the natural flow of the script is, let's keep that intact. But when there is an issue with the script, some things that doesn't work for you, then you try to bring this rule book onto the game, and then try to find your way of. So these are tools to really sharpen your script or resolve your problems with the script. So I use it that way.
Do you always bring back your ideas and not really make sure, but you see that they're following this structure or
No, no, no.
not always?
But I think that is these rules are good way of articulating or communicating about what you want to say to the other people in the room who are collaborating with you. But I think I do follow, and I also sometimes don't follow. It's
Okay.
as per the convenience.
Okay. What is the level of importance you give to the sound of a film? Because audio visual, again, audio is 50% of it.
I am so grateful that I had been to a film school where sound was given equal importance, and that to a film school coming from Subhash Ghai, who all his career has given a lot of importance to not only music but also sound. And when you go back and watch his films, you realize that some sounds that he has used as part of the design of the film way ahead of its time. So that kind of pedigree we are coming from. Secondly, I have had a collaborator like Ajit Singh Rathore, who's a multiple time national award winner. Just for the credibility sake, I'm saying, but for me, he is like he has brought a lot of sound sense to me. That Abhishek, sometimes when I'm shooting something and he's on the set, and he would say, "Don't take this shot, don't take it. इसको साउंड में कर लेंगे." एंड लाइक अभी अजीत, आर यू श्योर? हाँ, ये साउंड से मैं ऐसे करूँगा, तेरा पूरा ड्रामेटिक इंटेंट आ जाएगा. And Bhaskar Da, he was our teacher at the film school. He also emphasized a lot on sound, and he has mixed my films also. So as Ajit designed my sound and mixed my films, Anmol Bhave again. So these three people are like the crucial people who have made me understand the value of sound, and obviously Subhash Ghai. So I think I give a lot of importance to sound in a script. Some things can just be told with one click or a snap also. You don't need to take a close-up shot for it, or you don't need a dialogue for it.
Uh, do you also believe in not elongating the storytelling if it is cut? I mean, supposing a scene is already told its point, do you feel like you should move on to the next scene, or do you feel
Immediately.
आजू बाजू नहीं बस तो चले?
Immediately. Immediately move on. You do not have the luxury of time and the money. अगर मिल गया सीन में से जो है, काटो, आगे बढ़ो.
Okay. So the story shouldn't move around here and there as much as possible.
I don't feel like. I mean,
Yeah.
if I've got
It
what
could
to do,
also
yeah,
risk the
because
audience's
I'm
attention, I
popularly
think.
known on my sets that सर आगे का अभी जब शूट हो रहा था सर
आगे
आगे
का
का
सब।
सोच रहे होते तो मैं क्या करूं बट इधर से निकलो फटाफट दूसरा शूट करो.
Mm-hmm. How do you build and maintain a strong creative team?
That is the toughest job because creative human beings are the ones who cannot, stick along, for a long time,
They're high on dopamine.
and they move on very easily
Yeah.
and quickly. So what you do is that, आप जिस क्षण जिसके साथ में हो अच्छे से कोलैबोरेट कर रहे हो और ये दिमाग में लेके चल रहे हो कि वो हमेशा के लिए आपके साथ में नहीं रहने वाला है, वो आगे बढ़ेगा. लेकिन जब वो आगे बढ़ेगा तब शायद जब वो कहीं पे भी दूसरी जगह काम कर रहा होगा या खुद के लिए कर रहा होगा वो आपको याद रखेगा शायद फॉर गुड और बैड रीजंस. आई थिंक दैट इज़ द अमाउंट ऑफ रिलेशनशिप दैट आई हैव नाउ कम टू एक्सेप्ट. अर्लियर आई यूज टू गेट अ लॉट अफेक्टेड, अरे यार क्या कुछ नहीं किया इसके लिए और इसके लिए और ये और वो. लेकिन फिर रियलाइज़ किया यार हर आदमी की अपनी ज़िंदगी है. मैं भी अगर उनकी जगह होता तो मैं इतना ही क्षणभंगुर रहता और फिर आगे चला जाता. सबको आगे बढ़ना है.
Mm-hmm. Uh, the pre-production stages of a film, they can be very exciting, and but by the time the film reaches its end stages, like the post-production stage, it 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 can make one feel very, it can make you feel the staleness of the story because you've lived the story for months at end now. I mean, the interest in the story could l- be a little lower than what it was when it all started. So how do you keep up your interest and motivation till the end of the process? Because being a director, you're there from the first day till the last day. I mean, I think the director is the only person who's there from the first day and to the last day.
I think the three processes in filmmaking, one has to distill and understand that these are three different processes completely:
Pre-production, production,
pre-production
post.
and post-production. So when you're doing what you're doing in pre-production might not necessarily turn up the way you think in the pre-production at the production stage, and what you're doing at the production stage might not exactly turn up in the way in the post-production. So these are three great opportunities where you can actually cut the dullness out of the film and you can actually bring in new energies to the film. Most of the cases in the post production stage, what happens is that you get bored of the film because you've been living with this story for the longest time. So, what you do is you find newer perspectives. Good that there is a boredom because that helps you find a newer perspective. कहानी तो यही कहनी है, ये इंटेंशन से कहनी है. अब कैसे कहनी है वो तरीका तो बदलते रह सकता है. तो a lot of my scripts are written different, are shot different, and what is the outcome is completely different. Is because all these three processes I actually objectively sit and watch the film as an audience and watch everything like I'm the audience. How am I trying to perceive it? At the back of my mind is the core, that is the dramatic intent of the overarching story that I want to tell. If that is maintained, great. वो मेरा धर्म है, वो मेरी गीता है. उसको अगर बांध के रखा तो बाकी सारी चीज़ें बदलते रह सकती है, लेकिन ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन नहीं बदलेगा.
They say a film is made at the edit table. So I mean, talking about what you just said, the rig part of the process is a different journey. When you reach the edit stage of your film and you feel like, oh, this could have been done better, how do you go about it?
I keep on cribbing, complaining, constantly crying over क्या शूट करके लाया यार, क्या वाहियात डायरेक्टर है. और मुझे पता चल रहा है मैं अपने आप से ही बात कर रहा हूँ और मैं अपने आप को ही गाली दे रहा हूँ कि यार ये क्या करके आया है. So that is the amount of detachment that I want to have in all the three processes. When they say that film is made on the edit table, I think there has to be a little change in this sentence. The final film is been made on the edit table, not the entire film.
Yes.
So the final film is made on the edit table, is what I believe. And I keep on, because then, filmmaking or as human beings, we constantly evolve, we constantly change. What you thought 8 months back during the pre production, as a human being, you have changed. As emotions of yours, you have changed. While in the production, you have changed. While in the post production, you have changed. After the release, probably you are completely changed. So you have to embrace that evolution in you and deal with the story accordingly.
By the time you finish editing, do you have good relations with your editor or not?
No, no, I have not had a good relationship with anyone by the time that process finishes. वो राइटर हो, वो सिनेमाटोग्राफर हो, एक्टर हो या एडिटर हो या मार्केटियर हो या डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर हो, कोई भी, क्योंकि बाय दैट टाइम वी हैव फॉट सो मेनी टाइम्स, बट वो क्या है, वो मतभेद रहता है, मनभेद नहीं रहता.
Makes sense. How do you define the success and failure of a film, and how do you deal with both?
As long as you can be proud of the fact that you made this film honestly with great intent and you didn't lose your intent, I think that is the success that you can really gauge. It's an intangible success or intangible failure. If you cannot, even after a decade, 2 decade, 3 decade, or after a century, cannot be proud of that film, then there is no purpose of it. But yeah, you can be equally a critic to that film. What I made with Kevi Jaish in 2012, I do not like that film at all. I don't like Bey Yaar also. But I'm proud of the fact that at that moment, at the age of 24, I could make a film which could touch people's heart. And I made it with utmost intention of purity and honesty. तो मुझे गर्व है. हाँ, मुझे उस फिल्म से प्रॉब्लम है, मुझे उस प्रोसेस में जो हुआ उससे प्रॉब्लम है, बट एज अ फिल्म मेकर भी मुझे प्रॉब्लम है. लेकिन एज अ क्रिएटर मुझे लगता है कि यार मैंने सब कुछ तो सही किया, ये मेरा सक्सेस है. उसके ऊपर जो मलाई है, जो क्रीम है, वो है कि कमर्शियल सक्सेस. कमर्शियल सक्सेस इसीलिए होने ज़रूरी है कि इट विल ओनली मोटिवेट यू एंड एनकरेज यू टू मेक योर नेक्स्ट वन. So that is important, equally important. If there is no commercial success, you will slip into self-doubt. You will question yourself, all of that. So this is like a mark sheet. ये दो होता है ना कि आपने एग्ज़ाम बहुत अच्छे से दी या आपने तैयारी बहुत अच्छी की, पर उस दिन यार बारिश आ गई, आप लेट पहुँचे, आप आधा ही पेपर दे पाए और आप फेल हो गए. अब यार इंटेंट तो सही था. मार्कशीट में अगर आप फेल हो गए, डजंट मेक यू अ डल बॉय. You were
That's a
still,
very fair analogy, because the results उस time पे matter करते हैं. Later on, the results are
Yeah,
not that important.
yeah.
It's about how you went about with the exam that is important.
True.
Uh, let's come to, I mean, we were all talking about Gujarati cinema, but let's come to Gujarati cinema in particular.
Yeah.
Uh, how do you perceive the unique characteristics of Gujarati cinema compared to other regional film industries in India? What is unique about the state of Gujarat?
I think it being Gujarati itself is the uniqueness. Storytelling everywhere across the world is the same. The techniques are pretty much the same. But where is the story coming from? Whether it is adhering to the heartland or the roots is what really distinguishes a Malayalam cinema against a Kannada cinema, or a Kannada cinema against a Gujarati cinema, or Gujarati cinema against Punjabi cinema.
Okay. How do you approach the portrayal of Gujarati culture and in your films? What is, I mean, again, it's a sort of a repetitive question, but the essence is, what is so unique about the Gujarati culture that would make it unique to us, the film unique to Gujarat?
I don't know. I mean, but what I know about is the fact that Gujarati culture is not limited to just khawanu and garba gavanu.
Correct, as it is made to be.
It is made to be. It's beyond that. Not only food items or the garba is the real sign of Gujarat. It's like how bhangra and paneer is not only Punjab. The same way Gujarat is not limited to that, is my perspective. Secondly, I get this leeway or leverage of being an outsider in a way. Very conveniently and objectively, I look at Gujarati culture because I'm a Hindi bhashi at my home. We speak Marwadi or Hindi at my home. But when the moment I step out of my home, I am a Gujarati.
Okay.
So that objective view towards the Gujarati culture really helps me personally to look at things in a different way.
Okay. Have you observed any changes in the audience's expectations in terms of Gujarati cinema?
Oh yes, definitely. Way back in 2012, there were only 4 or 5 Gujarati films that released in multiplexes, and people probably would only hardly go and watch a Gujarati film. And we are now in 2022, 10 years, a decade. And there were more than 100 films that last year Gujarati cinema clocked in. And they were all most likely 90% or 90, more than 90% of the films were released in multiplexes. People went for those films. It's not that every film was a hit. Very few films, which is an average in across the globe. Very few films were hit, but people are wanting to watch more and more films or stories in their own language. And this is not limited to Gujarati. Look at every other regional cinema; they are all thriving just because there is this certain shift, or I would say a paradigm shift in the audience's consumption pattern, and they would want to watch more of their own rather than being very aspirational. They would also watch something which is like an event cinema and very aspirational, yet watch something which is absolutely next door.
That's true. That makes a lot of sense. Uh, how is the government of Gujarat supporting filmmaking, and what is its impact on the fraternity, the creators?
So I think the government of Gujarat since 2014 has been quite aggressive in supporting the cinema and the development of it. The tourism policy, the shooting conveniences, or the encouragement policy that the INB department introduced. All of these are very positive steps. But sometimes what happens is that every coin has two sides, right? So if you look at the positive sides, there are great positive sides because they are helping you to encourage you to make more and more films, make filmmaking very easier for you, convenient for you. But on the other hand, there are also people who are taking undue advantage of these things. So and every society or every fraternity would have these both kind of people. But when the other kind of people who are taking a greedy approach towards taking benefit of such schemes that are introduced by government, if that number of people increases, it directly impacts the ones who are the real beneficiaries of it. But that is happening, and it will change over the time, or it might be just the same. But yeah, the government overall is I mean, I'm not saying government because there is a certain party attached to it. I'm just saying because I know that it's also the department who's working hard. So just take the political party for now out of the conversation. Had this department been in any other party, they probably would have done the same if the right kind of people were sitting in the office and doing the right kind of work and understanding and sympathizing with the filmmakers.
What are the incentives, or how is it? How are they supporting? I want to know.
So, government of Gujarat has introduced this encouragement policy, which they call the Protsahan policy, which is very badly, abusively, slangily used as subsidy policy. It is not a subsidy policy; it is Protsahan policy. What they mean is that you make a film, the film will be, you have to submit the film to the department, and with all the attestments of bills and that you've genuinely made the film and you've not just done it as an act of siphoning your money here and there or making a black into white, white into black. So once they get all those papers, they put it into contention or into uh, into a panel of people who start evaluating the film. So there are this panel of experts, you may call them, who are going to evaluate films on different aspects of cinematography, this, that, and all of that. And one of the aspects is what is the box office collection of the film, whether the film has reached to the masses, whether the film has created the impact that it desired to. On basis of that, there is a marking system, and on basis of those marks, you get an X amount of money, which helps you, or in this case, encourages you to make the next one.
Okay.
That is the purpose. But now, unfortunately, as I mentioned, there are the other side of people who say that this is a subsidy policy. So people have started claiming, some directors have started claiming to producers that આપણે film બનાવી 1 કરોડમાં 50 લાખ તો હું સબસિડીમાં લઈ આવીશ. But there is no subsidy, boss. It is a પ્રોત્સાહન policy for your next film. You're trying to engage your recoupment of the film with this subsidy, this amount, which is apparently for you to mount your next one. So that is a misconception or misuse of these policies that people are doing.
It's a weird perception. Uh, how does censorship work? Is it central? I really don't have a clue about how the censor board. Do all films regional and central? What Hindi films also, which are also regional in a way, but do they get up? Do they all be approved by the same body in the same place, or કે આપણો ગુજરાતીમાં અલગ હોય ને ત્યાં
ના ના એવું કંઈ નથી હોતું. બેસિકલી એક તો આ સેન્સર બોર્ડ નથી, આને પણ અગેન બહુ સ્લેંગલી સેન્સર બોર્ડ કહેવામાં આવે છે. ઇટ્સ અ સેન્ટ્રલ બોર્ડ ફોર ફિલ્મ સર્ટિફિકેશન, CBFC. दे आर अ बॉडी टू सर्टिफाई योर फिल्म. दे आर नॉट हियर टू सेंसर योर फिल्म.
ओके
हम रशिया में या जर्मनी में वर्ल्ड वॉर टाइम में नहीं बैठे हैं जो वो सेंसर कर देंगे, कट कर देंगे. वो बोलते हैं कि आपको एज अ प्रोड्यूसर यू आर गिवन अ चॉइस. You get a A, you get a UA, or you get a U. Okay, U is your widest audience. UA is an audience above 18 or whatever, and UA is limiting the
with
audience
your
of the
parents,
13
kids with your
kids
parents or
with your
something like
parents or
yeah.
something, and A is absolutely adult. You choose, you propose to the committee that I want a U. So then they will start watching your film from that point of view and tell you that, okay, if you want U, you need to cut down on these things. If you do that, fair enough, you get a U. If you're okay with UA, okay, few more things that you need to, you can make way with. सो इस तरह से वो सर्टिफाई करते हैं आपको, और आपका सर्टिफिकेशन डायरेक्टली लिंक्ड है आपकी रिकवरी से. अगर ए रेटेड फिल्म होगी तो मतलब एक मेजर चंक ऑफ अंडर 18 लोग आप नहीं ला सकते हो सिनेमाघरों में. करेक्ट. उसका मतलब है आपने बहुत बड़ा पोर्शन ऑफ फिल्म व्यूअर्स कट डाउन कर दिया है. सो यू चूज योर बैटल. But what has happened is, okay, this is a central body. Coming back to your question, it's a central body which has got different offices. So our Gujarati cinema goes to Bombay, which is the western body. And there are committee members who are appointed for Gujarati language film. The committee members are supposed to know the language. Otherwise, how are they going to
Correct.
certify a film? So there is always a committee who understands Gujarati language, who sits there. That's about it.
That's it. Okay. This is sort of a large question, but what kind of legacy do you hope to leave back in the Gujarati cinema?
Legacy. ऐसा, I just want to make films so that I can tell stories and not only direct them but also be able to contribute to the entire ecosystem or the development of the ecosystem, where a lot of filmmakers, lot of storytellers could tell their stories. I want someone who's coming right out of a college but willing to do something, tell a story, has got utmost intense and vigor to tell a story. I want him to become a filmmaker. How can I contribute towards that? So can I be a good producer to him? Can I facilitate with money to him? Can I facilitate him with my resources? My job, I feel, is not limited to only being a film director. My job is to be able to look at the bigger cause, that is taking the ecosystem, along. If that is not happening, that I think my existence as a filmmaker is short-lived.
That makes sense. I think we've already we did have a chat about film schools in Gujarat.
Yeah.
Over a chat, I think. What do you think about? I mean, there is a need for a film school or film schools in Gujarat, but how far is it? I mean,
I don't know how far it is. Someone has to take that step, and I'm willingly, had I got the money to really put in the infrastructure of making a film school like a Whistling Woods or FTII, or more than that, or bigger than that, I would love to be part of it. I would love to initiate that. I think the next step for me in my career would be getting into academics.
Okay.
Would be probably making a film school, only if I have that amount of money,
okay.
or else if someone has an.
We've talked about how the Gujarati cinema has evolved. Not entirely, but yeah, but there was Gujarati cinema before Kevi, Jaish, but then you changed the trend. And uh, what trends do you foresee in the future of the cinema, Gujarati cinema?
I think we are not yet of a scale that we can call ourselves a fraternity or an industry, because there are not many producers. Each time a producer comes, he drops out the next time. So there are new producers coming in. Very few producers are the ones who have made films more than twice. So that comes to a definition that first step is to actually create an industry around us. By industry, I mean the entire ecosystem around us. Like how in Hyderabad, if someone wants to make a film, he doesn't have to step out of Hyderabad unless his locations are based out of Hyderabad. You know, in the same way, can we have all of it here in Gujarat? That is the first thing that I foresee would happen, should happen, must happen. Second would come to the kind of stories that we are telling. Right now, what we are chasing is the kind of stories that we are telling. Great, storytellers out there making some brilliant stories, telling some different stories. Earlier, as you'd mentioned, Gujarati films were only limited to comedy. Now they are not only comedies. There are drama. There are social messages or whatever. But I think with that parallelly, if there could be an infrastructural infusion, it will facilitate and help a lot of more filmmakers, novice ones or amateur ones, to come and plunge into this. What I foresee for now is a big shift in the technological aspect of making films here in Gujarat.
Okay. Uh, could you share your experiences of collaborating with actors, writers, and producers in the industry here? Something that amused you.
Every time I'm collaborating with someone, something happens because we get married to each other in a way, and we have our own moments of, joy and sorrow and heated moments and funny moments. I think most of these collaborations have been really good. I'm always grateful to the fact that these people believed in me. They carried along the same vision that I had for my stories. So there is no one particular person or one particular incident, but I think all the collaborations so far has been really amazing. I wouldn't have been a complete storyteller had I not had these people around me. So yeah.
Okay. Who are the emerging talents or filmmakers in the industry, in the Gujarati industry, whom you find particularly promising?
I think we all are emerging in a way.
Yeah.
We have not yet reached that threshold of.
No, but there could be someone who you think is not yet so popular or is not receiving so much work, but is capable of.
There are so many of them. I cannot name each one, or I cannot name a few, or I cannot name any, because the reason probably they are not getting their due, or they are not getting the right kind of scripts, is because those kind of scripts are never written. So as I mentioned, that the entire industry is evolving right now, and at this stage, to be able to gauge that this guy is, extremely talented, but not getting the right kind of scripts, but the right kind of scripts are not been written. So that talent is always going to be, latched with,
The ecosystem.
the ecosystem.
So, as you said, the ecosystem has to grow
Absolutely.
in coherence. Uh, my last question to you before we end this is, what advice would you give to an aspiring filmmaker who's looking to make his mark in the industry in Gujarat?
Yeah, I'm actually, frankly, and with all modesty, I'm not someone to advise anyone anything. But what I constantly keep on sharing with young filmmakers who want to tell stories, not limited to only Gujarati or anywhere else, in whatever forum and whatever way I can, I keep on telling them that, do not let the technology lead the way for you to tell the story. Let the intent be the foremost thing, or the torch bearer for you to tell the story. Because in today's time, it is very easy to get slipped into the fascination of telling a story. मैं कुछ ऐसे शॉट लेना चाहता हूँ और मैं फिर कैमरा को ऐसे रखे, वो सब कुछ हो जाएगा और उन सबके लिए सारे लोग हैं दुनिया भर में. आप कहना क्या चाहते हो और किस शिद्दत से कहना चाहते हो, किस इंटेंट से कहना चाहते हो, क्या आप वो कहना चाहते भी हो या नहीं हो. अ लॉट ऑफ सेल्फ एनालिसिस, internalization, the connect with your spiritual self is more important and rare in today's time than the technology. Technology is very handy and cheaply available. But what is precious is forming of that intent for your content.
Do you have anything to add to the conversation? Do you have any advice for anybody else?
नो
You could?
इतना
Fine.
सब तो बोल दिया.
Achha. Okay then. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.